There he is. Ladies and gentlemen, Satan himself, the BTR. Dude, why do you gotta do this shit every time I'm trying to summarize a dev diary? Oh, God. What do you want? I hate that that's a part of the game. Absolutely hate it. God damn, I don't get paid enough for this. What is up, my dudes? Welcome back to another Into the Radius Dev Diary overview. Okay, so this week's Dev Diary, boys. Talking about player progression and missions in Into the Radius 2. Into the Radius 2 is gonna pretty much have a very similar system and structure for how missions and progression go. And this basically just includes how gradually special features, new equipment, and new missions will unlock as you progress through different security levels. And obviously, in order to progress to these new security levels, you're going to need to complete top priority missions. And this is right around where the similarities start to end, because top priority missions in Into the Radius 2 are going to have a little bit of a different structure. Basically, Into the Radius 2 top priority missions are going to be unlocked not by completing X missions in order to unlock the top priority mission. In Into the Radius 2, we're going to have basically an accumulation of mission points that we can get by completing easier missions, which are going to be valued with less points, or by completing more difficult missions, which will yield us more points. I'm not specifically sure how many points we will be getting as it pertains to easy or hard missions. What do you know? Time for another cigarette. But the devs did say, in order to unlock a top priority mission, we're basically being given the option to complete a mixture of easy and difficult missions to reach that point total that is required in order to unlock a top priority mission. Or we could just do like 5 easy missions. And the amount of points that you would get from completing 5 easy missions is equal to the amount of points that you would get for completing 2 difficult missions. So we are going to be getting a lot more variety with not only what order to do missions in, but specifically what missions we do. Maybe you want to do 1 hard mission and then do 3 easy ones. Maybe you want to do 2 hard missions. Maybe you want to do 5 easy missions. They are all going to eventually allow you to be able to unlock the top priority mission, which will then lead to a higher security level. And along with this increase in security level, we're going to be getting even more missions to choose from, which I really hope means that we're going to be getting some extremely interesting and engaging new missions for Into the Radius 2. Because in Into the Radius 1, you guys know it, there isn't a bunch of variety when it comes to missions outside of top priority missions. And apparently, with the increase in security levels, the Radius in Into the Radius 2 is going to kind of change. The way the devs described it was the Radius is being reshaped and the world is being expanded as we progress to different security levels. It sounds pretty nice. Let's be honest here, dude. I could go for a little bit of world reshaping, a little bit of world expansion. I am extremely excited. Oh, that's nice. And actually, the devs did give us a few examples of how the world is going to be expanding and reshaped while we progress through Into the Radius 2. First up, maybe you are in security level 1 and you venture out into a new area where you find 2 enemies. Now let's flip the script and say that you're security level 3 and you're revisiting this area that you've been to before. But now that area is going to have the same enemies that were there when you were security level 1, but maybe there are an additional 2 mimics up on top of a roof or something like that. Or you stumble upon a patrol of mimics and other enemies that really want to take your lunch money and beat the shit out of you. And you better believe that these guys have shotguns and pistols. Or there's a third option. You could go back to that location at security level 3. All of the enemies have disappeared, and all that's left there is a massive cluster of anomalies with artifacts ripe and ready for the picking. This next example is with just anomalies, okay? You're security level 1. All right, you reach an anomaly cluster and you find like 1 artifact. Now let's say that you're security level 3. You return to that same location. Not only will you face new dangers, you will find additional artifacts as well. There's also the possibility that you return to this spot and everything is the exact same. The only difference is that it is covered completely by something the devs call a distortion zone. All right, so as you can see, this big, beautiful blue cube, these are distortion anomalies. So I'm assuming to an extent, a distortion zone that is basically encompassing a cluster of anomalies. That's gonna be interesting. I don't know specifically how that's gonna work in terms of damage and everything, or maybe it'll make you move slower, or I have no clue. Okay, this is just me speculating, but that's what the devs said. So that is the third possibility as it pertains to progression throughout security levels and anomalies. The last possibility is you return to that location and the cluster anomaly is gone completely. It doesn't say particularly if this happens that there will be enemies in its place, but I'm pretty damn sure you can assume that if you go back to a location that had cluster anomalies in it and they're gone, they gotta get replaced by something, dude. There's no way. And I'm assuming that something is probably mimics with shotguns ready to shoot you a new asshole. And the composition of enemies, anomalies, and artifacts is going to depend on the base difficulty of the location that you're in. So for example, if you are entering into the first location in the game, your security level 1, you aren't going to be able to encounter the most dangerous enemies in Into the Radius 2 at that location. The only way that you will maybe be able to encounter high tier enemies in the starting location or like lower level locations is completely by chance, and you have to be like max level. And that exact same thing goes for loot and artifacts. When you're at security level 1, you go to the starting location in Into the Radius 2, you're going to find some artifacts and some loot. But as you progress and increase your security level, you will continue to find better and better loot and artifacts. And let's say that you're security level 1 and you return back to the starting location, you will find better loot and better artifacts, but they will not be as good as the stuff that you can get where you are required to be a higher security level. And basically by doing this, the developers plan on maintaining that feeling of progressing through the game. As you go to new locations, they're going to become more difficult. The radius is going to become more dangerous the further you venture into it. But we always have that little safety net where we can return back to some of the easier locations at the start of the game and really take our frustrations out on all of those weaker, earlier enemies. And even though as you return to these locations, once you're a higher level, they're going to be easier, they're not going to be the same. The devs are placing a lot of importance on variety and diversity in Into the Radius 2. So when you return to these locations, like I said in the beginning of this dev diary, they're going to be different. Maybe a different combination of enemies, or anomaly clusters, or even a patrol of enemies. And I could not be happier about that, because not only is it going to increase replayability for Into the Radius 2, it's going to make everything feel so much more interesting and less repetitive. In early access, this system is going to be simplified, but still available. Some aspects of it, like different enemies, artifacts, and anomalies, might not be completely developed once the game is released into early access. We're gonna have to wait a little bit to get those things added to the game. And this is a huge one, dude. Missions have gotten changed a lot for Into the Radius 2. Now, they're going to be sequential steps to the mission. Each of these steps requires a different action from the player. Maybe you have to go to a location, kill an enemy, or activate an object. And I think when they're saying activate an object, they mean those little nests, the little artifact nests. I'm really interested to see what those are gonna look like, dude. Mission difficulty is going to depend on these number of steps, and essentially the more steps, the harder the mission is going to be. Along with that, during missions, sometimes scripted events will occur, aka enemies and anomalies spawning in. This next one is actually super cool. So, like you guys know, in Into the Radius, we usually get money as our reward for missions, but in Into the Radius 2, there's going to be a chance that we get some pretty sweet rewards, as well as money for completing missions. I really hope that these rewards are guns. That's all I'm gonna say. Or maybe artifacts. Or even stuff that we can use to decorate our bases with. That would be sick. During early access, there are going to be 4 types of mission steps that are available. These 4 steps are basically going to be what every mission is comprised of during early access. And throughout early access, the number of steps will gradually increase. So we'll be getting new mission steps added into the game as it develops. Anyways, my boys, that is the end of this Into the Radius Dev Diary overview for progression and missions. What did you guys think of this Dev Diary? Was there anything in this Dev Diary that you weren't a fan of? Is there anything that you liked a lot? Let me know about it in the comment section, as well as what other topics you'd be interested in the devs covering for us in future Dev Diaries. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel, dude. I post YouTube videos about VR every week. Shout out to the boys. Thank you, boys, for supporting the channel. I appreciate you fellas. But most importantly, have an awesome rest of your weekend, dude. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye. Oh, fuck. Is that a stomper? God, suck. Fucking hate those things.